to TLT Talks. We have a very exciting show for you today. I'm going to have on a guest that I consider to be a brother, a friend, a peer, a consultant, a therapist, sometimes an executioner, other times. And who we're going to be having on the show today is none other than he's been the strategic partner. He's been our preferred attorney for, man, I don't know, 10, 15 years, some absorbent amount of time. And hang on one second. Here we go. Mr.
I'm
Jason
in.
Zegans. How goes it, my brother?
You, sir. Everything's great. And yourself?
Fantastic. Fantastic. I was just saying that I'm going to have on a really exciting guest, someone that I consider to be a brother, a friend, a therapist, an executioner at times.
Yeah, likewise.
You got to wear all the different hats. But Jason's owned his law group for many, many years. He does very similar to the Litvak team. All of your needs on the roof, residential, commercial. If he doesn't do it himself, he knows somebody that does it. Single family, multifamily, condos, new dev. I mean, quite literally, Jason, I could rant about you forever. Why don't you take 60 seconds?
Yeah,
Let
thank you.
folks know about yourself.
Yeah,
What
thank
you
you.
want to
Thanks,
share.
thanks for having me today.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we are a boutique real estate firm here in New York, doing everything from residential to commercial. A large portion of what we do is residential real estate, representing buyers, sellers, co-ops, condos, single-family homes, new construction. Topic for today, and it runs the gamut. We are a small team, but we're here to provide really just exceptional service and
Yeah,
and knowledge and experience more than anything else,
yeah,
over
and
years
I
and
can speak to.
years.
Yeah, and I can speak to that service personally. There have been times where Jason's been away. There have been times where we were under the gun for a best and final or
Yeah,
whatever it was, and we had to work on contracts over the weekend or at 2 in the morning, or when no just doesn't exist. Within reason, don't call Jason at 2 in the morning
yeah.
unless you're me or someone like me. But
12
but
12:30
say,
is the cutoff time.
Jason, as you know, we love to have fun on the show.
Yeah.
Give us a fun fact. Some fun people may not know about you.
Fun fact. Aside from the fact that I'm an avid golfer, I
That's
almost went
right.
to culinary school. I was really, really into it. I studied abroad in Florence as a junior in college,
Wow,
and
I
I
didn't know
just
that
really,
either.
yeah, really got into the culture and cooking and the food. Who doesn't? Over in Italy, we're there for 6 months. Learned a little bit of Italian. I took a cooking course, and I came back, and then I worked in a restaurant
No way.
that summer. I worked at Atlantic Grill. My
Nice.
parents were like, "You're crazy if you think you're going to culinary school." I said, "All right, I'm gonna." They said, "Go work in a restaurant for the summer and see how you like it." And I actually did like it,
Yeah,
but they just put the kibosh on it.
yeah,
I really thought maybe I was going to be the next TV personality,
yeah,
food
yeah.
chef star.
I
You
think
know?
you might have had a better chance becoming a stand-up comedian. With our
Yeah,
parents or the kind of
yeah,
parents we have, you got to be
that's
a
fair.
millionaire by 25.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool. Well, very selfishly, I'm glad you became an attorney, my friend. Very
yeah,
selfishly.
yeah. And I'm glad
Um,
we linked too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Well. So, by the way, Jason and I talk about golf all the time. I'm not a golfer at all,
yeah.
but every time I see these like Instagram videos about golfers, I'm always like sending it to Jason, thinking like, just be honest, is this what you and your boys look like when you golf?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I get a little jealous because I watch your tennis clips, and you haven't been playing tennis that long, and you're
Yeah,
getting good, man. Your
it's
stroke is
coming together.
nice.
It's coming
And then
together.
I
It's coming
think to
together.
myself, I'm like, man, I've been playing golf for like 15 years, and I still suck. I'm like, what is wrong with this sport? And I don't
Well,
suck.
golf's a
I'm
lot
good for
harder.
like,
Golf's a lot harder. They say golf's like
yeah,
a really hard game.
yeah, but it's like I've never done anything more that I get not much better at.
Actually, no, my
Whatever.
one golf experience. Then we'll move on to talking real
Yeah.
estate. My
Right.
one golf experience, I went to the driving range for like a whole summer, and like I think I even bought a driver, maybe, or rented one for the season from the club. I forget, and
Yeah.
I got like
Yeah.
decent. I was all right. I was driving the ball straight, 250, 300 yards, fairly consistently. I'm like, all right. And then we go to play golf. And that was the end of my straight drives. I hook, a
Yeah.
pull, I mean, a hook, a
Yeah.
push, everything like anywhere but straight, anywhere but
Yep.
straight, long, short,
That's
anywhere but straight.
Yep.
Anyways, so
Yeah. Good stuff.
something that could be perceived equally as hard as golf could be navigating new development in New York City. So that's kind of the topic for today. The topic for
Okay.
today is Um, the Litvak team, Jason, when you and I met, I was like barely doing sales. We were doing, I don't know, a couple sales a year.
Yeah.
And now, we're one of the top teams in the country. And actually, partially what kind of happened over the last couple of years that people may or may not know about us is we really developed a new development department. And we've got $100 million in new dev pipeline at the moment. We've got 3 active projects, all this different stuff. So I just, I don't think we've done a lot of educating on this platform around the differences of new development to resale. So I thought that could be a good topic for today. So let's start with
Yeah.
you do so much new development negotiations, or rather inking what the brokers negotiate. Just talk to me. What are you seeing in terms of the new development market? How's the temperature out there? What are you seeing as far as all the deals you're doing?
Yeah, I think, obviously as we get into like our busiest time and everything, goes through these cyclical patterns, this is historically our busiest time. And I'm certainly seeing a pickup in activity. I don't know. I think like probably one of every 5 to 10 deals is new construction.
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing a lot of new construction activity. A lot of it is in Brooklyn, some of it is in Queens, not as much in New York City. But it's picking up for sure, and we're seeing a good amount of volatility in terms of new deals coming into contract,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
it's definitely on the upswing.
Yeah, yeah, we're sort of seeing the same. I mean, it's no secret. The last couple of years for real estate haven't been very
Yeah,
strong. Inventory has been very low. The deal flow is tough, and new development, especially in New York City, with all the things they've taken away and all the legal and political
yeah,
climate shifts, and it's not as attractive for developers. So there's less being built. And on our end, what we're seeing, there's definitely negotiability with many projects, especially as the developers don't finish on time, or they're towards the end of their timeline. In either case, they just want to be done with it and move on to the next. But also select projects. Actually, this starting kind of January of this year, there's been a very irregular uptick of the market of
yeah.
all sort of inventory. And I have a buyer that's looking at something now in Far Rockaway, and they're building a beautiful new glass tower there. And we made an offer 10% below the asking price, concessions. They shut everything down. They're like, we're not
Right.
negotiating price. We're not negotiating anything. They gave them a little bit of concessions, which we'll talk through.
Yep.
We just launched a project, a 16-unit condo in South Brooklyn, and we're 15% in contract in the first 30 days. So select projects are like really crushing it, really busy. Some
Yeah.
others
Smaller
take
buildings.
some the
Far
depending.
Rockaway. Yeah, depending.
Far Rockaway is a bigger building. It's
Okay.
200 units, I think.
Oh wow.
And it's a
Impressive.
tower. I mean, it's a large tower.
Hmm.
Full amenity package, tax abatement, kind of like we became used to when we were doing
Yeah.
most of our stuff together.
Yeah.
So for buyers out there, there are many projects where you can get significant discounts,
Yep.
and also there are some projects that are just hot. One thing you may want to know about pricing: usually the entry level pricing tends to be the cheapest because you're buying off of an offering plan, a piece of paper, and then as things go up, prices go up. So for the projects that are on fire, if you get in early, then you can see yourself build equity before you even close. And for some that's really looking for a deal, for any of these stagnant projects, there could be. So new development, it's a really fun game to play.
Yeah.
It's navigated very differently, but it's a fun game to play. So I guess that's probably like a good segue. And when you see, when you're seeing your transaction sheets,
Yep.
when you see, a new development deal versus a resale deal, what are some of the main differences of a new development deal?
Yeah, I mean, they could be tricky depending on what phase they're in. Not all new developments, we kind of use this new development term, pretty loosely. Obviously, there are buildings
Yeah,
that are, there's a hole in the ground. You have nothing that you've seen versus buying towards the end. And that's what you're talking about before. Obviously, when the building is built, and they're starting to do closings, your pricing has gone up over years. I have a
yeah,
client who, is buying in a new construction on the Upper East Side, very well known developer. He bought it a year and a half ago, super high end, and some of the super high end stuff, you're not getting any concessions
yeah,
because they sell those units. But he's probably got $1 million of upside already on his unit if he were to turn around and try to resell it. So obviously, as you get closer to reselling and finishing out the project, you have less negotiability and less concessions. On a regular resale, there really aren't any concessions, right?
Right.
The only thing that you potentially could do as a concession would be to say, buyer, you pay my flip tax. I'm not my
Hmm.
flip tax. I apologize. The New York City, New York State transfer tax.
Yeah.
If it was a co-op, there could be a flip tax as well.
Yeah.
But in New York City, you got New York City, New York State transfer taxes combined. They're about 2%. You could say, I want you to pay my transfer tax, but it's all a net game, right?
Yeah.
And you would know better than anybody else. The seller
Yeah.
comes to you, you're a listing agent, you're like, this is what I want to clear. If you have the buyer pay it, your price is just going to be a little bit lower. So
Yep.
it's just not the same. It's not apples and oranges, right? It
Yeah.
is apples and oranges because there just aren't concessions on a new development. The sponsor tries to shift all of their costs to you as a buyer.
Yeah.
And obviously, depending on where they are in the cycle of the project, then they have concessions. So they start out with their pricing, and in order to incentivize people, they'll come in and say, "Hey, we will cover X, Y, and Z," and that will incentivize buyers to buy. The typical things that you see are transfer taxes, as we talked about,
Yeah.
which are combined to roughly 2%. Sponsors attorney fees, which are somewhere in the ballpark of $2,500 to 3,000 or $3,500. There's also potential common charge subsidies. So sometimes sponsors will come in and say, "Hey, we'll pay 2 years of common charges. We'll pay a year of common charges." Sometimes that's in buildings that aren't completed yet and amenities aren't open and built. There are also resident unit super or resident unit, resident managers units that each purchaser in a new construction, if there is one in the building, sometimes small buildings don't have it, everybody will have to pay their pro rata share. So for argument's sake, there's 10 units in the building and it's $1 million. Everybody pays their 10% of the cost of that unit. So the super has somewhere to live. So those are the core ones. There's others, obviously, and those are per every, not every, but the bulk of new construction are costs that in a perfect world, the sponsor says you have to pay pursuant to the offering plan. And then it's your job as a broker knowing what you're doing to say, how do we negotiate these? How do we get our clients concessions and coverage and make it more enticing to buy in these buildings?
Yeah, that's so well said. All that is well said. So high level, let me for all the folks, he's so good at this and so smart. It's so easy to talk about this like it's two plus
Yeah,
two.
right, right.
So for all the people that are watching, whether you're someone that has not necessarily got the experience in buying new development, this is really valuable for you to understand that a new development, a developer, a sponsor, they're looking for a different deal than a resale. A resale is somebody, I own an apartment, I just want to sell my apartment for the maximum
Yeah,
possible price. It's pretty straightforward. There could be, Jason mentioned that in a resale, sometimes a seller will ask the buyer to pay transfer tax, but that's so rare and
so
uncommon.
rare.
Typically,
Yeah,
it's like I want $1 million for my apartment. You make an offer, we go back and forth, and we close. Flip tax gets negotiated plenty, but
yep.
otherwise, it's like pretty cut and dry. Here's an
Mhm.
asset. It's like buying a car. Here's the car. It's worth X. I'd like to pay this for it. You go
Yep.
back and forth, and depending on the market, it's over ask, it's under ask, whatever it is. Right? That's kind of it. When it's a developer, they're not selling one apartment. For part of it is it's a business for them, and they've had X amount of costs in producing this thing. Always they have investors, and so there's people to or banks, there's people to report to, and essentially what they're looking to do is they're essentially looking to hold their price. So what's pretty common with negotiating a new development is they're going to probably stay tough on their price, but they're going to negotiate a series of concessions, like Jason says. The most common ones are transfer taxes. What you're seeing more and more now, I won't go into all the weeds as to the why because it's going to just take too long to explain, but what you're seeing more and more now is Amex gift cards, either to the broker or to the buyer. Another common thing is some sort of monthly upfront. Actually, what's pretty cool about buying new development, oftentimes, like when I bought my apartment at the Edge,
Yep.
however many decades ago,
Good.
we closed, and for the first 12 months, because they were still finishing the building, we didn't have to pay common charges.
Yep.
So that was pretty cool. So there's all kinds of different perks. Another thing that's really critical to know about new development is you have no idea when you're going to close. So you're always going to get a date from a developer that says, let's say it's one of these big towers, and like it was for us, and
Yep.
you're one of the first contracts. What that means is by the time it's time to close, you've got built-in equity, like the example that Jason gave. But also that means is if they say 2 years, maybe that could easily be 2.5 years, 3 years. So when you're buying new development, you have to have a fixed living situation or a flexible living situation, because when it's time to close, they're going to reach out. They're going to say 30-day notice, and it's time to close. And if you have a 12-month lease, and if they were late and that caused you to extend your lease, but now you have 7 months left on your lease, and they reach out and they say 30 days, okay, tough nuggies. So just understand, buying new development, the closing date is up in the air. And this is the real, what's the word I'm looking for? This is the real interesting part of a new development deal is, yes, when you buy new development, especially early on, you get a lot of upside. But most developments do not offer a mortgage contingency. So you're buying a new development, it's going to be built, you're going to have to close 2 years from now, and you put down your down payment and you're expected to see it through, but there's no mortgage contingency. So God forbid you lost your job, something happened, tough nuggie, you got to find a way to close. So there's all these differences in your development. There are some developments that do mortgage contingencies. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is almost all of our develops offer mortgage contingencies as long as you are pre-approved by our lender. You have a contingency with our preferred lender. And so that's something we offer to buyers as a way to be competitive, and just because most of our sponsors, they care about the buyer having a good experience. So again, when Jason gets a deal sheet for a resale, it'll likely look like price, closing date, and that's it. Jason gets a resale for a new development. There's a miscellaneous comments section at the bottom. That's usually filled with all the different negotiated things that could possibly happen. So Jason, tell me why. Why isn't it easier if I'm buying new development units? And by the way, sometimes concessions can be north of 5%. It can be between 5 and 10% of concessions, depending if you are financing what the bank allows. So Jason, if I'm buying $1 million apartment, isn't it easier for me and the sponsor to just work it out, for me to say, well, you want $1 million, I want to pay 900, I'll pay you 900, versus the sponsor saying to me, well, I want $1 million, I won't budge, but I'll give you blah, 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 which nets to 900. Like, why make it so complicated? Why not just do the deal at a lower price?
Yeah, and the answer to that is pretty simple, right? The sponsors want to keep the recorded prices on units as high as possible. So when they initially do an offering plan and launch sales, it's an offering document that everybody sees. There's prices across the board that are standard and set. And the way that they give incentives, if they had to lower the price, then every buyer is going to know that they lowered the price. And now they come in, like looking at recorded comps on Streeties or something, and they say, great, now I want the same deal. So sponsors definitely don't want anybody to know. And that's the value of you guys in this system, right? If you do a lot of new construction, if you don't, often you don't know what to negotiate, and you don't know how to negotiate it. And sometimes I get a deal sheet and I'm like, wait, this doesn't cover everything, because they didn't know what to negotiate. But the real answer is sponsors want to keep the highest price possible, so that when they start to sell more and more units, they unilaterally can say, hey guys, I'm not offering these concessions anymore, or your concession package is less, right? If you were paying transfer taxes and everything, and now they might just say, well, pay transfer taxes, you pay all your other costs. So the secrecy really is the number one. Number two, the higher purchase price helps the buyer potentially finance more. Obviously, the banks do look at their concession package, and they have certain rules how they factor in the concessions into price. But with a higher price, you can borrow potentially more money. If you lower the price, you're going to get a loan based on the lower of the appraised value or the purchase price itself. So those are the two main reasons. And then obviously, as they sell more and more units, then they'll do an amendment to the offering plan to increase prices, as they're no longer giving any concessions.
Yeah. Look, honestly, I think sometimes sponsors or developers or landlords get unfairly vilified. It's like, no one buys an iPhone, or maybe that's a bad example, but I was going to say nobody buys.
I have a friend
that
does, by the way. He thinks everything on earth is negotiable. I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, but like nobody buys an iPhone or goes, screw Apple, that devil, I mean, it's all like it's, first of all, what it takes. I think people don't really understand probably what it takes to actually build a building, like the mass amount of time, planning, investment, risk. Think about a business where you have to borrow millions of dollars, no matter how small the project is. It's always at least $1 million usually. And then most of the time, as an inexperienced developer, unless you're the Toll Brothers or you're the Naftali Group or you're the, unless you're one of the top 10 developers,
Yeah.
every loan gets personally guaranteed. So if it somehow
Yeah.
doesn't work out, like you're broke, you're homeless, you're bankrupt. So someone's going to take it upon themselves to take on all this risk, take on debt, invest all this stuff. Their job is to provide quality housing, which, by the way, the
Yep.
city desperately needs. Their job is
Sure.
to create housing, quality, affordable housing, or luxury housing for the different markets, the different developers appease different markets. And then at the end of the day, I mean, it's a business, so they're trying to maximize their returns, and
Yeah.
that's the goal. And so when you think about the way to drive the business, I mean, when you go buy a bottle of liquor, or when you go buy any other asset, you don't know what they sold it for to the last customer, what deal they got with the last customer. It's
Yeah.
and so I think transparency is important for New York City. I think it's important to see where things have actually traded and having some level of transparency. But again, no one demands transparency. And
Sure.
like when you go to buy a car, you're not asking to see the last 5 cars sold from that particular, how much. It's just not
Yeah.
necessarily realistic. So
The car is a good
partially,
example because you never know with the
yeah, you
car.
never know. Like,
Yeah.
so partially it is that. Partially it is these guys are running a business, like they have to
Yeah.
be able to, they have to be able to, they have to be able to get all of what they got returned. They too have to feed their families, so they have to create some sort of profit. And if they want this to be a career, they have to satisfy investors and banks to be able to do it again. And so partially, I think they get sort of unfairly vilified.
Yeah.
Vilified. Also, what you say is spot on. For if you are working with an experienced broker that knows how to navigate new development, then they can, as a buyer, there's so much opportunity here. Because again, if you know where the good new developments are, and you're, ears to the ground, and you're getting your buyers in on the ground floor, like for example, one of our clients, a longtime investor, we bought 6 or 7 units together in a bunch of different new developments. He bought a 21 India. It was the first luxury
Yeah.
building on the Greenpoint waterfront.
hmm
We bought it for, I think it was 2.2 million, a 3-bedroom, and he got the Schedule A pricing, which is another
Yep.
name for the first pricing. And we picked that building because we knew what was coming there. And over the course of the 18 months, 2 years, whatever it was, I forget now the exact amount of time that it took them to build it, they did price amendments 6 different times. So by the time he closed, the value of his unit was already $700,000 more
Yeah.
than the first contract that we signed. So it's not really fair to like vilify the sponsor when things don't go your way, but then be like perfectly normal that I bought something, it's worth 700 grand more. I did nothing but stroke a check.
Yeah.
Like you got to play fair on both sides. The
Yeah,
other
and
piece,
there is risk on both sides, by the way.
of course,
Delays and
of course,
timing and interest rate
absolutely,
rising and a zillion
yeah,
different things. Yeah.
yeah. Like you put, one thing that happened that was kind of crazy. You did all this, you borrowed the money, you bought the property, you've done your studies, you're getting ready to build a building, and all of a sudden New York City says no more tax abatements. And
Yeah.
if you haven't broken ground, you can't get a tax abatement anymore. Overnight, your project is without value. What do
Yeah.
you do now? Like, what do you do now? Or, you're preparing to build something and you're operating under the assumption of 3% interest rate, and overnight it's 8.
Yeah.
Or you're a landlord, you bought an asset with
Yeah.
plans of certain, and all of a sudden they change all the regulation, and your building's now without value. Like,
Yeah.
so it's crazy.
Or when they change mansion taxes, you
Yeah,
bought dirt, you're
yeah,
building a building, and they
yeah.
up mansion taxes.
Even now,
And
what came out today? They want to tax. I think they want to tax
was it
the
pied à terre
pied à
tax?
terre
Yeah, I
tax. Yeah,
saw that
which
too.
again, like, look, I get it. But if I'm a wealthy person from around the world, I'm just not gonna buy in New York City. I'm gonna buy in
Yeah.
Florida. I'm gonna buy in Texas. I'm just gonna buy somewhere else. So
Yeah.
these higher taxes, they're a very short term solution, and create a very big long term problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't
Let's
get
not get into
political.
politics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So ultimately, the transparency is a big part of it. But also, guys, just please understand: when developers build, they're not the final decision maker. They're investors, and their banks are. So they've got a series of reporting to do. If they want to drop prices, they've got to go through the city. Everything's got to be approved by the city. So partially it's done. And as you said, Jason, being for a buyer to be able to have more buying power, it's a lot easier to take 100 grand and amortize it over 30 years and come up with 100 grand on the spot for closing. So this
Yeah.
really benefits buyers in a big way too, because they get to finance more.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
for some small funny money monthly payment. Anyways, I could talk new development with you all day long. I think we'll
Yeah.
need to do a part 2 at some point. but it's coming up on the end of the show. I want to respect your time, of course. You got lots of clients to see and serve, including some of mine. Jason Zegans, any final thoughts, closing remarks, any suggestions for anybody out there looking
Yeah, I
to
think
do something?
honestly, I think that, if you are in the new construction market, obviously understanding potentially, timelines for projects, and what you're getting yourself into in terms of what you need for your lifestyle and where you live and what your expectations are is really important. But I think the big takeaway from this is you really need somebody that's a broker that's really experienced in new development. I can't tell you how many deals I do that a broker just isn't. They have a lot of experience in
Yeah,
real estate
yeah,
and they're really good brokers. And I get a deal sheet and I start to talk to them, and I'm just surprised that certain things aren't covered. And it's just because they don't know and they don't know how to negotiate that. And sometimes, honestly, I get a client that tries to go the no broker route because you could go to the listing, the
yeah.
marketing team for the sponsor direct, and like, why do I need? They have people that are sitting there.
Mhm.
They'll show me a marketing plan. They'll give me an offering, an
Yep.
offering plan, and let's negotiate price. Those are the worst because truthfully, they come to me and then they say, what should we do? What should we ask for? What should we negotiate? And the reality is, I know a lot about real estate and I know a lot about what we could ask for. But the key that I don't know is what you know, right? I
Yeah,
get deals, the prices are negotiated. I don't know how many, like, yeah, sure, I know roughly how many units are sold, but I don't have like a pulse on the market the way that
yeah,
you guys do. And I give them sometimes, I'm not wrong information, but like my answer to them is I don't want to blow your deal for you because I don't really know.
yeah.
Sure, we can all ask for this and you can get no's, but the biggest takeaway is just put yourself in the hands of a broker that's really experienced in new development. Call the TLT and
Mhm.
put
Yeah,
your trust
thanks,
in them.
Jay. Yeah, man. And if it's not us, someone else, and someone that's done a lot of
Yeah, of
resales, they're
course.
not equipped to do new development sales yet. So, do you know what I find? Oh, every time we have a guest on the show and they praise the brokerage community, thank you, of
Yeah,
course. I just find it funny, like people. Well, no one's trying to. Very few people are turbo taxing their taxes. Very few people are doing their own plumbing. Very few people, but
yeah,
the thing you're going to spend the most amount of money on
yeah.
in most cases, if you're a buyer, it doesn't even cost you anything for a presentation because it's already built to the
Agreed.
sales price.
Yeah,
Why would you ever want to do this alone? Even if you've had
yeah,
experience, even if you're an experienced buyer, you're not doing it every day. Like, anyways, well,
yeah.
Jason,
We'll talk
as
about that
always, a
another time.
pleasure. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. As always, a pleasure. I love you, my
Thank
brother.
you for
Thanks so
having
much for
me.
your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Bye bye.